All right, everyone, welcome to another amazing episode of the Veteran Entrepreneur Masterclass podcast and YouTube channel. Today's guest is another awesome Marine who actually, I'll tell you an interesting story how we got together, but Chris Palmisano. Morning, Chris. How you doing, brother?
Hey, Brett. Good to see you. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, man, a little early today. And this, I don't know, this is probably going to come out at the end of July, most likely, maybe early August, but 4th of July week. So I got my American flag going. I got my little patriotic American Indian shirt on. So kind of fun day for me. I think my producer is going to yell at me for the background a little bit, but hey, so be it. It's 4th of July, man. So thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Good to see you. No, I think you just wanted to show off your guns. I think that's what's going
Sun's
on.
out, guns out. Sun's out, guns out. 47.
I think that's what's going on here.
47, man. 47. Well, we can talk about, actually, let's talk about that because
You still got it.
I worked for it, right? It's one of those things that you don't just, you got to do the work, right? You got to do the work. So one of the things in business, if you are an entrepreneur and you're listening to this and you're a veteran, you don't have to be a veteran to listen to this, but if you are a veteran and you want to go in business, one of the good books we always recommend is Stephen Covey's 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Mm-hmm. And one of the last habits, I think is 6 or 7, is sharpen the saw. And so you have all these mental points you work on. You got to bring it together. And then you got your saw blade is all your tools, but you got to sharpen it. That's the physical aspect. If you want to do well emotionally, professionally, your body has to be in good shape too, right? If your body's breaking down, you can't operate at a high level. So that's right. One of the things we had in the Marine Corps taught us, and hopefully got it before the Marine Corps in high school and sports, whatnot, it's just working out. It's just doing something. This isn't meant to be a plug for it, but several years ago, I'll just tell you what I was doing and love to hear what you've been doing. Regular gym, regular workout. Then P90X came out like 10, 15 years ago. So high rep, low weight, just go. Start doing that. And then these gyms kind of came out and I joined a P90X / CrossFit type gym. But then I was always hurt. I was always like, you do too much. So I quit the gym, I think 5-6 years ago. And where I live in Hermosa Beach, California, there's a old railroad track, which is now a jogging trail. And there's workout stations. So it's pull-ups, push-ups, sit-ups. And I would just thrash myself going in sessions on that for a very, very long time. And that definitely worked. And then for whatever reason, I was like, let me just find something different. And I found an app on my phone called Muscle Booster. And this isn't sponsored by Muscle Booster. This is just me. I pay for it. I use it. And the coolest thing about this app, it literally just tells you what to do. And every morning there's a 7-minute workout. 7 minutes. That's it. And if you have more time, you can do a half hour, 40, 50-minute workout. But to sit there and just have 7 minutes, no matter what, we all have 7 minutes to start our day, right? So we can all take 7 minutes to work out a little bit. My habit now, I've got my crazy crack drink, which you probably can't show inside. It's like 4 different pre-workouts. I take a ton of vitamins, like all this stuff. Because as we get older, it's harder to keep that energy level up. It's harder to keep that motivation level up. So I use supplements, a ton of them. If you guys want to know what the heck they are, you can put a comment or question in the comment section below. Ask, I'll talk about that. But I think for any veteran entrepreneur, if you're going to be crushing it at a high level, you need high energy. You do, right? It's a lot of, you're doing a lot. So you've got to be in shape physically to execute at a higher level mentally. That's just my thoughts. What are yours, Chris?
Yeah, I agree with you completely. I mean, there's a reason we started every day with that, right? I mean, think about it. At one point, we had a job where they paid us to PT or paid us to get in shape and stay in shape. I mean, there's a reason for that. It's extremely important. And like we evolved to hunt, gather, move around from place to place. And so like this lifestyle of us like sitting behind a desk all day, I mean, this is not really what we were intended to do. So you have to take it upon yourself, I think, to get up and get away from the desk or maintain an active lifestyle, because we're just not, you weren't intended to sit all day.
100%, man.
And so what works well for me is trying to schedule it and make it part of your routine. And there are times where I'm better at it than others. I don't think that means you have to get up at 4:30 in the morning and do it. And I know that works for some people. But at this stage of life, maybe you're not that early of a riser. But I think as long as it's routine and scheduled and you get into it, whatever it is you like to do, you know, for a lot of people, get up at 6, hit the gym at 7. That's plenty of time to get a workout in, get a shower in, take your shake or drink your shake, do your protein, etc. Whatever it is you got to do, have your little morning routine and then start work whatever that looks like for you, by 9 o'clock in the morning or earlier if need be. So I just think you got to make it regular and make it routine. And then like most things, if you're not measuring it or you're not tracking it, you're probably not going to pay as good attention to it as you should or as you could. I wear one of these things on my wrist. What's this? A Fitbit. And these things are helpful. It syncs to an app. It tracks my mileage if I go out running. It tracks my heart rate. You get some data on sleep, stress levels. And then as we get older, these numbers get more important and you want to start paying attention to them. These things work. And then whatever you can do to curtail or maintain a diet within reason, or a good, good food and nutrients coming in, I think is also extremely important. I had a meal service that I was using where the meals would just get shipped to the house. They ended up going out of business. And so I'm looking for a new one, but that was fantastic because I didn't have to spend a lot of time prepping food. I could just plop it in the microwave. They come out and the food was amazing. There was never a meal that was more than 700 or so calories. That curtailed like overeating very, very easily. And then that leaves you some room. So on the weekend, you do want to go out to eat, or you want to go to a nice place or a nice restaurant, or indulge a little more. You can. So there's a lot of ways to do this. I also think as I've gotten older, I've gotten more into protein intake, and we really do need to consume protein.
I got no problem with that. And I love meat. What about the gummy bear group? The gummy bear group is one of my favorites too. So like for me, I work out and so I can indulge, right? Why everyone's like, why do you work out? Are you training for something? Like, no, just want to be in decent shape. I'm 47, right?
Yeah.
I don't want to be like some of my friends who get carried out feet first at some of these places doing nothing, right? So I want to be in good shape. And if you work out, you can eat pretty much whatever the heck you want still. Now, as you said, as we get older, you got to check your blood pressure a little bit more. Because your body just can't bounce back from things as they did 20 years ago. But one thing you didn't mention, which I think is important too, in your overall health, is your amount of sleep you get, especially if you're an entrepreneur and if you're a parent and you got a little one at home, something like that, that can keep you up. So I'll share a poor habit or a lesson failure, which you have to adjust from. Me, I like to generally stay up at night. And when the day's done, I like to sit there at night, watch my YouTube channels. I get stuck in YouTube and just go down a YouTube rabbit hole and watch all these crazy things. And I'll have a glass of wine or two. And so depending on the type of wine you drink, sometimes there's high sugar content in it. And that sugar content will hit you like 2, 3 in the morning. You're trying to be in bed at a good time, and then it wakes you up and you're just up. So if you're going to drink wine or alcohol, be aware the sugar can ruin your sleep. And then if you're staying up late, 10:30, 11, midnight, and then you try to be motivated to get up at 5 and work out 5:30, you're only getting 5 hours of sleep or less. That adds up over time. So I think it's very important to get at least 6 hours, ideally 8 if you can. It's really, I don't know many people that can get 8 hours sleep or have the ability to get 8 hours sleep, but at least 6 good hours of sleep. But if you can try and get 8, that would be ideal.
I agree with you completely. That's actually the area where I struggle the most, is like regulating sleep. But the more the merrier, I think, up until a certain point anyway. They say everybody needs between 7 and 8 hours, and then anything below that, you're probably going to notice degradation or some issue over a long period of time if you're not getting enough rest. I think it's extremely important. And not just for being an entrepreneur, regardless of what you're doing. I mean, think about how much more productive we'd be if everybody was sleeping appropriately or getting enough rest. That's a real issue for people. I meet vets all the time that are talking about sleep apnea, and they've got CPAP machines, and they're on all kinds of prescriptions. And I've had to try some of that stuff in the past too, but that's a real issue. And so you definitely have to get enough sleep. And there's good sleep hygiene. We can all learn how to do good sleep hygiene, like turning off the blue light a couple hours before bed, having some sort of wind down routine, maybe meditation, making sure the room's really dark. There's a lot of things you can do. Maybe earplugs. Sleep hygiene is really important, and getting enough rest is important.
You're saying all these wonderful, good things, and I sit there guilty. I think in my mind, I'm guilty. I'm like, oh, like my sleep hygiene, what used to be, especially when I was working wearing a suit, I would come home and just leave my white t-shirt on, and I'd have a glass of Cabernet in my hand or something, just exhausted. I'd actually have it like on my thigh on my couch, like drinking it, watching TV, and just fall asleep and pour a glass of red wine over myself. On my t-shirts, like the bottom half used to be stained red from that. So probably not what you're supposed to do. So don't do that, but definitely have a good sleep hygiene. I've never heard that term before, so I like that. Well, let's talk about you, brother. So tell us about your time in the Marine Corps briefly.
Yeah, sure. So I did ROTC in college and went to OCS, and gosh, that would have been 2001.
What's
so
ROTC? Are not all our listeners are
vet? Sure. Yeah. That's right. So a college program where you go to college at a university, not a service academy. There's scholarship programs and non-scholarship programs where if you're on a scholarship program, the government puts the bill for you to go to school. You do some summer training each year. The Marine Corps still sends you to officer candidate school because why not? The other branches, I don't think, do that. And then when you graduate, you go on active duty and you serve for a period of time, depending on the length of time of which is determined by what your specialty is. So if you become a pilot, you probably owe about 10 or 11 years. If you go into virtually anything else, for us, it was 4 years on active duty. That's what I did. I was a senior then when 9/11 happened. And then after graduation, in May of 2002, went down to Quantico and went to the basic school. I actually became a communications officer. So I went over to comm school in Quantico, also stayed there for another 6 months, and then went to Camp Lejeune, checked into the fleet, joined the fleet unit, and served another 5 or so years on active duty, first as a platoon commander in a comm unit, then as a company commander. We did Iraq in 2005. And then I left active duty in 2000, the very early part of 2007. And I stayed in the reserves until about 2012. That's where I met Mike, our mutual friend, who was your roommate at the basic school.
Yeah,
I think.
My roommate at the basic school. Yes, we'll talk about Mikey.
Yeah, and so that's that was my path. I had a great time. I loved it while I was in. I enjoyed it. I liked seeing different parts of the world. I enjoyed being both on active duty and in the reserves. I learned a lot while I was in. I had a great time. Now I try to stay plugged in and give back to the veteran community where I can.
Yeah, well, let's talk about that. Thanks for sharing your background. And actually, I have a question, a commo question.
Mm-hmm.
I actually just went on a camping trip 2 weekends ago, and I guess there was a national thing. Are you a ham guy at all? Do you know?
Yeah, so I know of it, okay. And I'm not in it. I'm not into it. It's not my thing, but for what I can tell you is that people that are into it are super into it.
Explain what it is to the audience.
Yeah, so a ham radio is just a little handheld radio, or there's variations of them. People communicate with each other using these radios. You have to get like a certification, I think, before you can use it. And you'll see people driving around with these little antennas on their cars,
or big antennas.
Yeah, they can be very big antennas. But it's just another way of communicating. And I think it harkens back to a prior time before all this digital communication, when people used radios predominantly to receive information and communicate. And so, yeah, there is a hobby world out there. I don't know, maybe they would find that offensive. To me, it looks like it's a little hobby world where they use these handheld radios or different style radios to communicate with each other.
So going back to comm, these guys, actually, there was a couple Marines. Actually, there were 2 Marines in this group that went camping. And OA USA, it's Outdoor Adventures USA, is the group. And they do adventures, but they also are huge in a ham radio. And these guys, all these monster towers and things. And the comm guys brought a monster slingshot. They're shooting rocks over trees to get the height to pull the antenna up. So I guess with ham radio, height and elevation is power. And there's also the broadcasting power too that you put out. It's got generators, put like monster power out. And I guess a couple times a year, every ham guy gets together and they try and have a contest. See who can get as many contacts as they can around the world. Like these guys will stay up all night trying to get like a couple hundred contacts where they reach somebody in like Florida and they say who they are, what they are. There's like certain protocol. But it's cool to sit there and watch them set up all their gear and do it. It is, if you're in it, you're in it. I was kind of intimidated, but they're welcoming and kind of reminded me of stuff. So when I was a lieutenant, a comm story, I had a couple days where we can make up our own training regime for our platoon. And so one of the things I wanted to do, I remember like field expedient antennas. Yeah. And so I remember that. And I spoke to the comm guys, like, why don't we do this half a day? And so we went across Camp Lejeune. We were there, and my platoon sergeant was on one side of the base and I was on the other side of the base. And we tried to get our compasses out and see where we are, and made like a big V antenna to shoot the beam or the radio waves a certain way. But it was so cool when we did that. I remember it was really funny. I think he retired as a Major Upton. Super, if you guys are listening, he used to be staff sergeant, my platoon sergeant, but then he got commissioned and kicked ass as an officer. He's a great guy. Upton, I think Major Upton. I think he's a cancer survivor too right now. He just actually beat cancer, which is awesome too. I saw a post on Facebook. But he sat there. We were all set up and we're like, hey, is it working? And we called him and he's like, sir, it's like, turn around. And we're all like, he's like, made you look. I'm like, really? Dude, was that crystal clear? It sounded like he was right next to us. It was really, really cool to work. So sorry, that was a kind of a calm story there. Just something different to try and do something with your Marines outside your normal MOS. So we appreciate the comm guys, and being able to talk is huge. But thanks for everything you did there. Yeah,
those field expedient antennas, those can actually be kind of fun. We would experiment with those things all the time, but you can drop frankly, just a cable down a hill from the top of a hill, which is probably what some of the ham radio operators are trying to do. It's called a sloping long wire, and it'll bounce an HF signal off the ground. And then what you're trying to do is get that in the direction of where the other radio is going to be, which is why you and that team were using the compasses to try to find each other to create the V so that you could actually connect with one another. Al Gray, Commandant Al Gray,
remember that,
was, I think, the only commandant that had done a tour, like one of the only commandants that had actually done a tour, like as a communications officer. And he was the commo, like, big award every year is named after him. It's called the Gray Trophy. He had a well-known quote for saying, it's not that, like, people just fail to understand the electromagnetic spectrum. And so, like, it's a field of science, and the more you learn about it, the better you can do at it.
That makes sense. Sense. Well, good. Well, thanks for sharing that. So when you decided to get out, so I'm going to shift gears and go back to you here in your military time. You got out, but you stayed in the reserves. So tell me about that thought process and that decision making, because you didn't get out cold. Well, what was your decision to get out, number one, and then why to stay in the reserves?
Yeah. So the first part, so getting out, I wasn't wild about the whole like orders process, and you just kind of go where they send you regardless. And so, like, there's a lot of games, and there can be a lot of gamesmanship involved in that process. I knew what I wanted to do. I had a list of goals. I didn't know how long it was going to take to accomplish them, whether it'd be 1 tour, 2 tours, 3 tours. But really, by the end of my first tour, like, I felt like I had done what I had wanted to do and what I had set out to do. And at that point, I thought, well, let's go start a new life. And I had just gotten married. So we got out, and I worked actually with one of the headhunters that there's a cottage industry of recruiters and headhunters that place military folks in corporate America. And I linked up with one and went and looked at 15, 16 different job opportunities over the course of 2 days, which was a really, really great experience, kind of like a crash course in interviewing, business, making a transition, which, by the way, I think is a great way to make a transition. I think there's a couple of really good ways to transition. That's one of them. And I'm happy to talk about that or talk further about it. But yeah, so anyways, I worked with one of them. Cameron Brooks was their name. They were really very good. I thought they were great. And I ended up getting offers from like 6 or 7 places. We picked one, and then we moved, relocated, and I got started in that job. And I was there a few months, and the prior service recruiter had called, and I was a commo, and there was a comm unit just up the road. And I thought, well, why not join the reserves? Give it a shot, see how I like it. And then if you're in the reserves and you ever decide to go back on active duty, it's a lot easier than if you're coming in cold again. I'd gotten some advice early on that said, if you ever get out, don't be afraid to do it, get out, but stay in the reserves, and it makes it easier to get back in. I never ended up going back in. I stayed in the reserves for a couple of years. And then as a reservist, I thought the reserve community was kind of interesting, very different than active duty, but serves a really important purpose. We backfilled all kinds of active duty units that were deploying to Iraq and Afghanistan. And then our unit went and deployed a couple times as well. Not everybody goes every time. So depending on the needs of the Marine Corps or the mission that you're sent, you decide who's going to go, and you put the team together so that you can accomplish that mission.
Right.
But I stayed in the reserves for several years, and then in 2012, I finally resigned completely.
What was your decision then?
Yeah, so I was going back to school at the time. I was going to go to business school, and I was working full time, and I didn't want to give up my job. I had a good job too. Just doing all that at one time probably would, for me, I thought would have been too much. And you're trying to be somewhat selective about how you spend your time and what you commit to. So I kept my job. I went back to school, and I stepped away from the reserves. And again, I felt like I had done what I had set out to do, or done what I wanted to do, and that it was time to move on and do something else.
Awesome. Well, thanks for sharing that. And I think what you've done, the reason I have you on this podcast right now is to talk about what you've kind of just went through. You walked through being active duty to transitioning the reserves, getting your MBA, and then you actually made it up to be a CEO, which is amazing. And I think that a lot of veterans, a lot of business owners, let me ask a question. In your own mind, and we didn't prep this, what's the difference between a business owner and a CEO?
Yeah, great question. I don't know if I've ever actually thought about this, but I'll try to work through it.
It just hit me right now. Bam. Sorry for the warning.
I spent a little bit of time working for a company called Chorus. And Chorus was building software and process and systems for executive teams, leadership teams. We positioned it for the C-suite. And the CEO was a thought leader on the CEO role. And so there's a couple of ways I think we might be able to parse through this. There's business owner, and then there's other titles. And so president, CEO. And so I think a business owner could be a one-person shop. Maybe you are a one-person RIA.
100%.
Which is a registered investment advisor for anybody that's listening, and he's registered with the FINRA, probably, which is the Financial Industry Regulatory Authority, and the state that you're operating in. In that case, are you a CEO? I don't know. You're certainly a business owner. And then if you have a small business where you're leading people now, maybe it's just the family, or a family-owned business, or maybe you started to hire employees. In that case, your role may take the shape of a president, and that's a little different. You're also still a business owner, but the scope of the role has changed or has grown. And so maybe it's multifunctional, or you're leading lots of people, or even just a few people. That could potentially be a president role. You could call it a CEO role. But in my opinion, the CEO role is one that's multifunctional, has responsibility for everything, essentially is running a corporation or an organization of a certain size. I think that's one way to think about it. You sometimes see people with the title president and CEO. I mean, CEO is also written into business law in a lot of states. And so there are corporate officers. And in the history of it, like these roles all flow essentially out of the military, right? So the reason it's called the chief executive officer, the chief operating officer, these are business titles that were meant to mimic what effectively was the world's first organization, was the military.
I love it. I think it's a good way of explaining it. What came to my mind as I'm sitting here listening to you is, I think the main difference between a founder and owner and maybe a CEO is also the level of ownership too. So a public corporation hires, the board of directors hires the CEO, right? So it's a job. You don't necessarily, you could be the owner and founder, like Steve Jobs was a founder of Apple, moved up CEO, but once you could lose the power, right? As a CEO, there's a board of directors above you that really has the power. And so it's a job versus if you own it, right? So I think that's an aspect too. So CEO can come and go and is hired by a board of directors versus the founder, owner. Well, generally the founder starts the business, right? An owner doesn't necessarily have to have founded the business, but could have bought the business or stepped in later on. So I think it's maybe, the fact a business owner owns the business, it's their business. The CEO is generally hired by a board. I think that's the main difference. But it is funny, as you shared, I'm kind of a founder and owner of one. I have a small staff, but on Facebook, or not Facebook, and LinkedIn, everyone's a CEO, right? Everyone loves the title CEO of one. and they kind of roll with that. But it's like when I reach out to people too, like CEO, you look at the company size, and you'll generally see a lot of the companies are companies of one or two, which is really, you more have a practice than a business, right? A lot of people like to give themselves a title CEO.
I think that's changing too, though. With the kind of tools that are available today, you can be a one-person business that's massive. I mean, one of the most interesting trends in the economy is the rise of the solopreneur. So a one-person digital business that is absolutely killing it. I mean, you don't have to hire employees. You can outsource virtually any aspect of the business that you want. Maybe we'll give a concrete example, but there are people writing newsletters that sell their newsletter. And there's a free version of the newsletter and a paid version of the newsletter. Or you pay to get this person's newsletter. And there are software platforms that make this process possible. They'll collect your payment, or they'll collect payment from the subscriber, the writer, or the newsletter owner gets paid from this and then puts their fabulous content into a newsletter for a niche audience, or maybe a large audience. And so some of these newsletter, I mean, I've read that there's certain newsletters that are doing hundreds of thousands of dollars a month, millions of dollars a year. And this is, or small developers that are one-person developers that build a small software app on a low-code or a no-code tool that they sell, or people that are selling e-commerce or selling information products online. So there are ways for you to build like a pretty substantial business online that's just one person. Now, does that still make them a CEO? I don't know. I mean, we can debate that. But are they a business owner? Yes. Are they an entrepreneur? Yes. Are they making a living at it? Oh, yeah. Some of them are probably making a really, really great living at it. I mean, most CEOs don't make $2 or $3 million a year. Maybe of like the really, really large, Fortune 500 companies. Yes. There's a lot of data out there on compensation. And the typical CEO might be bringing home around 600,000. And so like, if you got some guy at home in his home office selling a digital product, making $1 million a year, he's making more money than the vast majority of CEOs.
I think you hit the nail on the head. And I'm kind of thinking myself, I'm not in SaaS, I'm in wealth management, but that's what I am right now. Like I have a newsletter guy I paid to actually write my newsletter. I'll give them a plug, Mojo, they're veteran owned. My legal counsel is outsourced. My administrative staff is outsourced. My business development is outsourced. Like all that stuff is outsourced. So like I've got the team, but it's all virtual, right? And you look at, and I had staff in the US. And when you have staff in the US, you've got payroll taxes, you've got retirement, you got healthcare, all that stuff. You got to cover too, in addition to the staff itself. And now I was a little hesitant at first, but I've just gone down the path of looking at international help that's outsourced, where I'm not HR. I have a company I engage, they're HR, they find the talent, they screen the talent, they make sure the talent's qualified, they make sure the tech, it works for the talent so that they can work and support you. So that's actually one of our guests was on the podcast, Cody Hall. I'll give him full credit. He has a company called Telehelping, and he outsourced in Mexico. And so that's actually, he helped me find staff when Giselle, who's been on the show, decided to go another direction, right? That's something to look at. So veterans supporting veterans, that's just something there. So if you're a CEO or you're a business owner, or you want to get a business and you're like, I have all these ideas, but I don't have the cash to pay a full staff yet, look at outsourcing. Right. And sure, we've got our group, the Veteran Entrepreneur Masterclass. You can reach out. If you have a question, just put in the comments section below, reach out. We get together. And actually, I want you to be here this Tuesday. You haven't been to one yet. Coming up, we get together for an hour every month, all veterans, all in business. And we just talk. We do what's working, what's not working, have these challenges. So we've built a community to help each other, support one another in business, and be supported by other veterans in business. And so it's not mandatory, but this is the community we've kind of built, and this podcast is reflective of that. So we'd love to have you there. I know you've been busy with your past role, right? So I didn't have time to have you there. But now let's shift back to you, kind of go through your experience as how you went from not being a CEO to kind of being selected. Kind of talk about that process, if you don't mind, Chris.
Yeah. So some of the things that I've learned that I think are valuable. One is that these jobs don't fall from the sky. They don't show up on job boards, rarely. If you're seeing it online, you probably want to really, really look into it. Most CEO roles are filled through either executive recruiters or networks. And so you always want to be building your network and always want to be connecting and providing value. And then on some level, personal branding yourself and getting known for something. I mean, I got my first CEO job through a relationship and someone we had considered working with in the past. And we knew each other pretty well. When an opportunity came up, he said, "Hey, I think you would be good for this." And that it kicked off the process from there. And so that's how I think most of these are done, is through reputation, personal branding on some level, and being known for something. And so the sooner you can put yourself on that path, I think the more opportunities will open up for you later on. At some point, you have to make it known what you're looking for. So I have a friend here in Austin who is just now starting a CEO position. And when her last position ended, she took some time to regroup and to relax and to rest up and to figure out what she wanted to do next. And then she made it abundantly clear that I want to be CEO in my next opportunity. And then started reaching out and reached out to everyone she'd ever worked for, reached out to all the CEOs that she knew, found the names of recruiting firms and executive recruitment and placement firms that specialize in the C-suite, and started outreaching to them, put the total package together, the resume, a bio, LinkedIn, probably other portfolio pieces, and then started the process and worked her way through. It took several months, but I had a couple CEO offers on the table. I mean, that's how this process works. If you're not starting the company and then calling yourself CEO and just putting the title out there.
Let me just summarize what you shared, if you don't mind. So it's really about relationships, being relentless, and the work itself to bring it together. Oh, and the other thing which came about, which you mentioned, was reputation, right? So
reputation, personal branding, having your ducks in a row, being organized, and knowing who to call and when, and then allowing yourself some time to work through the process, I think, is also extremely important.
What were you known for? Because you said you had your own reputation. What were you known for that you think helped you in that transition and or this elevation to that next position?
I don't know if I was really known for anything. I had a background in sales, which is helpful. Look, the CEOs tend to come out of a couple of different, they can come really through any path, but certain companies at whatever point or some point in their inflection or some inflection point in their life cycle might be looking for a CEO with a sales background, or they might be looking for a CEO with a product or an engineering background, or they might be looking for a CEO with a strong network in a different part of the industry. So depending on what the needs of the business are, they're going to take that and translate that into who they go recruit. If you've got a strong sales background, and that's helpful. And then you can, as you're making these introductions, as you're meeting people, as you're putting your package together, your portfolio together, you can say, "Hey, look, I'm Chris and I'm a CEO candidate and I've got a strong sales background and X, Y, and Z." And that gives you your opener. But you want to think through, what is that for you? I've had a sales background. I also worked in operations. I have a military background, an MBA. And so you start to put these things together, and hopefully that positions you best for whatever it is you want to do next.
100%. I couldn't agree more. So thanks for kind of sharing that.
Yeah.
Let me ask you this question, another pointed question. When you made that transition, what was the biggest struggle or issue or challenge you faced when you first stepped into that role?
Yeah. So if you haven't done it before, there's quite a bit. People think, "Oh, you become CEO, don't have a boss." Well, no, actually now you have a board, and you're reporting to a board, and they probably all have different personalities, and they all have, they may have different requirements for what they're looking for. And so and this could be brand new relationships for you. And so you want to work through that relationship building process, understanding what the needs are, how do they want to communicate, how often do they want to meet, what's the protocol for how you're going to meet, how do they want to receive information, is there certain templates that they want, how often do they want to be updated in between meetings. And so there's an entire cadence to that. And so you'll want to work through that, and then understand what that looks like. So that's one issue. And then there's staffing your leadership team, building out a leadership team, recruiting. What is the needs of the business? What's the financial situation of the business? Where is performance looking currently? What's the culture look like? And so you own that. You own all of it. That's why I think veterans make great executives or great business people. They generally have a sense of ownership. And then if you can take total ownership over things, or your view is that you're responsible for everything, that's a helpful view, I think. And then from there, you can work through the processes of delegating and doing the things that you're best suited for, while having a team and a staff with you that can do the things that they're best situated for,
right?
Best positioned for. And then you can manage the key responsibilities of the role, which is to own the culture, own performance, drive the business forward, make key decisions, ultimately deliver on what you've been hired to do or been promoted in to do.
Right. So if you're listening to this episode right now, this is a great opportunity. If you have a question for a CEO, or what it's like, or what had to be done, please put them in the comments section, and Chris and I will get back to you. So again, if you have questions on being a CEO or want to be a CEO, or I think my next question is going to be a good one here. What was your biggest failure that stands out as a new CEO? Because let's be real. If you think you're going to step in and not fail, you're wrong, right? We all fail. We all learn. We all grow from those failures. And the second we can realize we fail, and ideally fail fast and learn and pick it up, we can improve. So for you, is there one particular lesson or story or example that stands out and through failure that you've grown from?
Yeah, I'd say there's, in every role that you're in, there's going to be a couple. I think the thing that I would probably do differently the next time is really ensure that I have the best possible relationship with each of the board members, and that all the stuff I just mentioned about working with the board is clearly laid out, and that you're really aware of every resource that you have available, and how you're going to leverage each one of those resources, whether that's the cash in the bank, assets on the balance sheet, your team members, what are their strengths and weaknesses, and then really ensuring that your plan is tight. And that it's a plan that's been agreed upon, and that you know how you're going to hit the plan or deliver against the plan. And when I say the plan, I mean the key metrics that you're going to be evaluated on by your board in the future. So at the quarterly interval, annual interval, and so forth.
Awesome. So with anything, it's a job. It's still a job, right? And as you said, you got masters. You're not the big cheese walking around like you own the place. We potentially could if you're a CEO of one, but if you've got a board, you're beholden to a master, right? So with any relationship, then it's communication, right? You're saying it's huge to have that communication, which comes down to then building strong relationships, right? So being able to build strong relationships where you have great communication back and forth, and then setting reasonable expectations. Well, maybe not. The boards maybe try and set unreasonable expectations to push, right? Because the board always wants you to step up. So how do you make it as strong as possible to make sure that their expectations and your understanding of your mission are on the same page?
Yeah, I think you got to talk to them, and you've got to ask them what they want, both individually and then as a group, and ensure that you understand what they want, and then how they want to be communicated with, and then what is your role, because ultimately you're the one that's up there delivering. And so you, as a CEO, you're probably on the board also, and so you have a vote in these things. You want to be clear about what the expectations are. And then again, what the protocol is. And then where I think the relationship management comes in is when and how to engage with each board member, because they all probably have specialties and skills, and they've had a career of their own. And so then how can you best work together to be successful? And then ultimately, if the business is successful, this stuff all gets a lot easier. Like what problems do you want? Do you want good problems or problems of fortune, or do you want bad problems? And if the business is doing well and performing and revenue's coming in, they say revenue solves all problems. So if the business is doing really, really well, then these are good problems. You're going to have good problems. And that's how I think you want to spend your time. You want to spend your time working on the good problems.
No, 100%. We really have two choices in business. We're trying to grow it or increase profitability. Either grow the top line, which is revenue, or slash expenses at the bottom, which I think if you've got enough revenue, expenses don't matter, right? If you got so much
Yeah, they may
revenue,
still matter. Yeah, they may still matter a little,
well,
but
not nearly as much as if you don't have as
yeah.
much revenue, you got to really trim the expenses,
Well, I
right?
think the way to think about expenses is, yeah, there are times when you have to do cutting or when you have to be disciplined. You can only cut so much. Whereas the top line there's no limit.
I
Your
think
top line,
that's
your limitations on your top line is, frankly, the limitations you put on yourself in your organization. And the better you can get the team to work together, the better the product is. If the product's great, then you can go out and market the product. But a really great product will, as they say, sell itself. I've heard this notion before that you need great marketing when you don't have a great product, and you need great sales when you don't have great marketing. And so if you have a really, really great product, and then you throw great marketing and great programming on top of it, and then you throw great sales on top of that, now you've got this really fruitful engine that's turning and making the business hopefully very successful and making a lot of money.
Yeah.
Or if you don't, and your team's not working well together, and the products aren't hitting certain release dates, or the products aren't great, and products don't incorporate the right feedback, or you miss the mark completely, you can spend as much money as you want on marketing, and you're still going to be less successful. And then you can put the best salespeople in the world, but if they're selling a product that's not the best product, or that's poorly marketed, your salespeople aren't going to be, or your sales organization isn't going to be doing as well. And now you have a problem there, because salespeople often tend to be, as I was in a sales role, coin operated. You're there to try to sell the product and to make some money. Again, you can have great problems, you can have good problems, or you can have bad problems. And which problems do you want? Because life is not static.
Right. No, 100%. I think the main thing, bringing this all together, and we're almost at the 45-minute mark, which is awesome. I think if we bring it all together, it's really understanding what problem your business solves and for who, right? And if your business or product, it's okay, it's marginal, doesn't matter the marketing or the sale. Salespeople can push it, market people can kind of help out, you have an okay product. But if you really have a product that fills a need, that solves a problem, and then you've got great branding, which gets your solution in front of the right people, and because of brand awareness, and then you've got the sales team to orchestrate the transaction, because sales is a transaction, and marketing is more a mindset, brand awareness, right? And sales is not marketing, and marketing is not sales. Two completely different functions, which I learned that lesson the hard way. A lot of companies spend a ton of money on marketing, but if you never ask for a sale, that's an expense then, right? It's just an expense. So it's all about balance. So bring it together, brother. Like, what's on your mind? What's the kind of the one thing that's standing out? If there's anything on your mind right now, not to put you on the spot, but as a CEO, it's gone through and you've got the board and you've built a team, like what's kind of standing out for our listeners, veteran entrepreneurs who are maybe wanting to go in that space? What mentorship or guidance would you offer them?
Yeah, so it's going to depend on the stage that they're at. So if it's a very early stage venture, they're probably all in. Regardless of your title, your role, you're all in, and you're probably doing all kinds of things. And you might even be doing like the financials. Whereas once you get to a certain size, someone else should do that. Outsource it, or hire a controller, or someone that can, or an accountant that can do that for you. Very early on, that might not be the case. So each situation, I think, is unique and contextual. And I think you put your plan together and you decide what activities you're going to do based on where you are and what your requirements are at that stage. I really think that it's contextual. And then some things that I think are helpful. And one, like mentors, or find a mentor or find somebody that's done this before that you can talk to about it. There are CEO, if you can afford it, there are CEO coaches and CEO support groups and peer groups. Vistage.
I was just to say, yep.
Vistage is a network. There's the chief executive group. There's now a lot of masterminds out there that are marketed online, that are run by people that have been there, done this before. I think the idea of a coach is a great idea. Professional athletes have coaches. Why shouldn't professional business people? So I think professional coaching is great if you can afford it, or if your business can afford it. There are forums, there's magazines, the Chief Executive Magazine, Texas CEO Magazine, anything you can do to immerse yourself in how to be the best CEO possible. Books, there are great books out there, a ton of great books. CEO Next Door is a good book. The CEO Tightrope is a good book. So there's a number of books out there. And so this is, it's a new level. It's a new role. The Marine Corps had a reading list for each rank. It was broken down by rank. Remember?
Yeah.
Why would we expect that business roles would be any different? And I don't think we should expect that. Look, there's a lot that the private sector has taken from and has learned from the military, and vice versa. And in fact, right now, the military is trying to figure out how to do technology a lot better and move procurement and acquisitions a lot faster, because everybody's worried about the next fight, which is important. But nevertheless, educate yourself, learn as much as you can, admit when you've made a mistake or when you failed, pick yourself back up and keep moving forward.
Love it. Love it. So Chris, if I could summarize what we went through here today as a CEO role, number one, relationships, have strong relationships, never burn a bridge. And then knowledge is power, right? Educate yourself through books, through mentors, through coaches, and just, hey, you set a goal, let people know this is where you want to be. So communicate, use those relationships, build your knowledge base so you can execute at a higher level. And then little thing we chat about, stay in shape, right? Stay in shape physically so you can execute higher mentally. So this has been awesome, Chris. I really appreciate you being here. Any final or parting thoughts for us before we end this episode, brother?
Yeah, the last thing that you mentioned, solving a problem. So being particularly clear about what problem it is that you solve and testing that to ensure that that's actually the case. The framework I like to use is, who do you help? How do you help them? And then what's the benefit for them? And if you can answer those questions, and you get a good answer for those, there will be a benefit for you. You can figure that out over time.
Say that one more time, brother.
Who do you help? Who do you help? How do you help them? And what's the benefit for them?
Awesome. Who, how,
it's got to be something that's in it. Yeah, it's got to be something that's in for them, right? What's the value that you're bringing, or that you're adding, or that your product adds, or that your service adds? How do you add value? How do you bring value to the process, or bring something that they need, and go out and win.
Love it, man. Everyone, this has been a phenomenal episode with CEO Chris Palmisano. Chris, thanks for being our brother. And hopefully, let's have you back on another 6 months or so. I'd love to have you back on, just letting you know now, as you go through your next journey and as you're trying to figure things out, love to see where things go. And if you learn more in the next lesson, we can share it with our audience again. So if you have questions, comments for CEO, everyone, please put in the comments section. This is Brett and Chris signing off. Out.
Thanks, Brett.